Hi, I'm Hunter Hillary Pendragon, and I am coming to you today to make the second, I guess, in a series of videos talking about the mechanics of the Legends universe, trying to make it readable, trying to make it into something more, not necessarily more easily understood, but something uh, that people can get their heads around. Um, Talking specifically about just how it works, how to think about it, a guidebook, if you will. I made a previous video where I introduced the idea that in this universe, conviction makes someone strong. Whether you are right or wrong, uh, regardless of how you got there, if you are convicted about something, if you believe something strongly enough, and if you test and resolve that conviction, if you can render your belief, you that can make someone powerful. Uh, that I thought was a very useful touchstone. I felt like it was a good and relevant point to focus on to help uh, build up people's understanding of the universe. And so I kind of have this little video series, and it'll probably get added to. I have no idea how long it will be, but just a handful of videos, maybe more than a handful, talking about how this place works, and a guidebook to try and help people figure out why the things in this universe are the way they are, and how these stories come to be, how the people in these stories think about them. So, trying to keep it small and understandable, today I want to introduce another, I think, equally foundational piece of information or piece of knowledge, just one of the pieces of bedrock that is important to understand and know that will help you navigate this universe, how it works, and what stories are important in it, just because there are so many. Um, and basically, the idea I want to try and impart today is the idea that the creator of the universe, Allura, in the lore, Allura made this universe. That's not the right word. This universe was designed. And what I mean by that is that clearly, there's me, the author, I made it, whatever. That's not what I mean. I am talking about in their own frame of reference. Allura, the creator of this universe, built it to be a certain way. One of the things this universe plays with, especially on the level of its outsiders, the Amenhotep, the true immortals, the definitively most mighty beings in it, and a lot of the sort of more existential questions that get tackled in even the smaller scale personal stories of this universe, is you will see that there are people asking a lot of questions, these meaning of life questions. And the reason I think that's valid is a thing that you really have to remember when looking at this material is that Allura built everything, but it didn't have to be that way. The speed of light, 2.7, times 10 to the, what, ninth, seventh? I really should know that off the top of my head. But the speed of light, why is it that number? Why isn't it something else? Why isn't it 3.2 times 10 to the seventh? Why is it that way? Why why are gravity and time so linked? Questions, all these things that seem strange or like weird that we take for granted because they just are the way they are. In this universe, every single one of those was an intentional choice made by a person. And that person is a character. Allura's walking around. They're talking to people. They're living in this place. The everything, the fact that, I would say that planets are spheres, but the very idea of geometry as it is was an artistic decision made by someone. There is, you hear these things in some of the broader descriptions of some of the ages where, like, time was destroyed. We have time zones now, that it was built like a quilt, that they had to repair it, or that, space is rendered in a sort of series of lenses. All of these ideas, everything that has to do with the Fae and kind of the way that fairies have to craft reality out of dream, these are all reactions and realizations of the idea that the universe didn't have to be this way. The first age of the Titan, the Age of Fire, is when time starts. It is when the universe inside this setting was built, but there is space outside that setting. There is a machine in which the Legends universe operates, and that machine is built to protect and steward it. Why it was built, the way it was built, all of these matter, and they are questions that get asked often of the person who made it. I'm trying to think. There is a period of time, I guess, as an example, there was a period of time before creation, before before the Titan was made, before the universe was real, before the Big Bang ever happened. Allura made a planet, made a people. Those people endure. They have a culture and a history. They've, had wars, a near an invented battle, and by extension, kind of murder. And these things happened. Those stories occurred, but why they happened was that Allura wanted to make people, build a prototype, watch what happens, see how they behave, see what they do, what changes need to be made, play with physics a little bit, color, the idea of music and stars, what magics are important, how powerful are they? These were all, Allura was painstaking and deliberate. They were a craftsman. The best way to think of Allura, the creator of the, creator being of this universe, is that they are the greatest artist in the universe. That is full stop. That is the one epitaph I think they would appreciate, is that they are a craftsman. They built it so that it would be a certain way. They built it to achieve something, and that something isn't a secret. They made the universe because they were lonely, because this almighty, all-powerful being, the person who got to decide what power even was or meant, someone with such complete and utter control of what was. Reality isn't the right word, because it wasn't back then at that point. But someone who was the totality of everything, and the totality of everything was theirs to command. They didn't like it. They were the only being. It was perfect. And the most perfect anything can be is when it is one, when it is ordered. If the universe was the epitome, the epitome of order, and the most ordered a thing can be is when it is one. So, frankly, they didn't like that very much. They were lonely, they were bored, they were sad, they were in their own head, and so they made creation. It was, frankly, a bit of a coup. The universe was flawless. It didn't need anything. The act of creation introduced chaos. This is a world that was orderly, and chaos is the thing that led to creation, because it's kind of a good thing in this universe. The not always, not in every story, but the idea that people could make choices, that was the whole point. Allura didn't just want to make people. Allura didn't want a bunch of dolls. Allura legitimately wanted people that could surprise them. They wanted something that would, not just entertain them, but that would be a peer. They were looking for conversation, for friendship. And so they made the universe and then divested themselves. In fact, they made it in such a way that it required destroying the idea of a prime, a prime Empyrean, the idea of a one singular being in control of everything. They did their best to obliterate that throne. They wanted the universe to be free, and once it was made, they no longer had power over it. They were happy about that fact. The universe was made to surprise them, and people needed to be in it so that they could make their own choices. But there's so much, I'm having a hard time because there's so much packed into this idea that is so important to this universe and how it works. There are planets everywhere, but there are planets that are habitable everywhere. Almost all of them have a moon. There is a certain kind of magic that makes habitable planets have roughly the same gravity, even though they might have vastly more volume and mass. There is a magic that tunes gravity to what would be suitable. This universe is not inhospitable. It is made to be lived in. It is there, it is made to be traveled. This is another one of these videos I want to make, but space travel is a pretty fundamental technology. These people learned to run before they could walk. It was easier to travel the stars than it was to stay in one place, just because of weakenings or because of all kinds of anomalies. The universe was flush with them because it was built to be explored. This was a place that the creator wanted people to travel. So that happened to be easier. There was no great mandate from heaven to go explore the stars. It was just easy, and it was beautiful. The kinds of things that were out there were so rewarding and so enticing. They were made to be alluring, so people would go to them. And that leads to a lot of the beauty of this universe, but it can also lead to some of the genuine awful. There are some really great stories that I love dearly that are pretty personal, of just people going up to Allura and saying, hey, why did this thing happen? Why is our capacity for evil so great? Why is it you could have made evil lesser? You could have made death painless. You could have done this, and you didn't. And these are valid questions. There are a lot of, I mentioned that powerful people, that conviction makes you strong. Being able to walk up to God, the let there be light God, and really just say, why did X thing have to happen, is something you can do. And the answer isn't always, I washed my hands of it. The Allura, as a character, feels a deep responsibility for, in their rush to make something that was exactly how they wanted it to be, they allowed for a kind of pain that it was impossible for them not to understand. They wanted to make something that could grow beyond what they could envision, but the universe isn't quite there yet. Their creation was so broad and vast that they are waiting so patiently for people to explore it all, for people to realize it all, because the way in which if they knew everything all at once, there would be too much control. You would see the fingerprints of God, and Allura worked hard to eliminate them, and to admittedly not complete success. They wanted there to be flaws. Allura made sure the way the universe was crafted led to a certain amount of questioning or uncertain design. They specifically, basically subcontracted out important pieces of reality so that things would have to be interpreted or misunderstood, so that God's hands weren't on the finished product. And it shows the Tlaili have their relationship to their religion, God's thunder, the idea that there was a hand, that the very first pendulum that ever swung, the very first atom that ever moved, the Big Bang, it didn't just explode, it exploded just so. It was the massive randomized seed, the random number generator seed, this string of digits, almost infinitely long, but each number was chosen, and that led to something. This star is here and not a foot to the right because of this, that there, this wind, that the butterfly effect goes back to the source, and the Tlaili believed that if you could travel the stars for long enough, you can see the brush strokes. And in that, they could decipher something. They could decipher God's thunder, the sound the lightning made. And I don't know what else to say other than think on that. I'm having, for the life of me, a hard time trying to get into the bones of how significant the intentionality of how the world is made translates to how people live in it. Being able to question God is such a powerful thing. And they do, even when they don't want to. People who maybe aren't convinced that God is, that Allura is real, or they don't know that they exist. They don't announce themselves. They don't want to be worshipped. They want to just be there. They want a peer. They want someone, that they could get a beer with. Their dream is to be excited, to have someone to talk to find an equal. And this was their only option. Humanity is built, all of the races, all of their evolutions are pointing towards the idea that there will be a community of equals among God. That is what Allura wanted. And it matters. There is I don't know that I'm ever even going to release it because, frankly, the writing isn't good enough. I'd need to rebuild it from the ground up. But there is a story, very small one, very personal. It doesn't, no battles, no earth-shaking event. It doesn't change the universe. But there is a story about just Allura journeying with the Tlaili, being on one of their golden-sailed ships, just to see them, just to talk with them. Allura loves people. And after divesting so much of their power, they're just having a good time. They're talking to people, and some people come aboard, and they're leaving a planet that they just barely convinced, this small planet where the weakening's closed, and they've been building a civilization for a couple thousand years, and this wooden sailboat with a gold sail made entirely of living wood descends from the sky with these happy, Polynesian, Pacific Islander looking 7-foot tall tree people that are just happy to be there, that are just so excited to, find that these people have been living on this world. And they tell these people, we've been sailing the stars forever. Join us. We'll show you. We'll take you on a joyride around your sun. And these people don't know how to deal with it. And a handful of people hop on board. They go for that joyride. They circle the moon. And a massive lunar body from the first age, just a dead moon from the end of the First War, is hurtling through space at relativistic speeds, and it smashes their planet to dust. And it, this is a small, small deep space world, unconnected from the realms. They didn't have a realm law. They didn't have the magic to keep the civilization safe from cosmic indifference. And Allura is on that ship, watching these people see their world destroyed. Days after they learned that there was a greater community of space out there. And the I wish I had written it better. There is this moment where Allura just feels this incredible guilt, this realization of like, oh, I did that once upon a time. This universe was built so that anything, probability of something I made, something I envisioned, is such that anything that can happen eventually probably will happen. And this is that moment. And these are the people who their whole world, if you've ever read the poem Pale Blue Dot, do it. It's life-changing in some ways, but for them, every king that had ever lived, every lover, every poet, every song they had ever heard in their lives, every historical figure that had ever been born, everything, everywhere, their whole family line, their whole history, their libraries, their nations, their enemies, their friends, people they had never even heard of, civilizations they had never been to, the things that you see on the newspaper, on the TV, that they were never going to see, and it all got wiped away by a roll of the die. And they don't know that the creator of everything is 30 feet away. And there is just this moment where Allura deals with that. And these people deal with that. And call me a softie, call me whatever, but the way this ends, the way this story ends, is that the people, they just celebrate. They drink themselves silly. They talk to the Tilleley about everything that they had ever heard. They just talk and they celebrate, and the Tilleley, they listen and they write it down. They make books. They take their watches and they smash them. Everything that had ever been made, the last remnants, the last precious remnants of what that world was, and they burn them with a smile because it's just stuff. And it is nothing. The archaeological destruction of, something that people will now never know, the information that is purely gone from the universe, the tragedy of that does not compare to the just act of somebody losing a life. And it wasn't for the civilization because, frankly, these people who just lost so much, they don't know everyone. They only know the people they did. Their lovers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their mothers, their friends, their teachers, their acquaintances, their colleagues, just the people they know that didn't even know what was going to happen. that it ended in a blink, and they just celebrate. And the one thing that I remember, the one thing I love from this story is that at that funeral, Allura was the only one who cried. And that is so much of what happens that, that people, the universe is the way it is. It just is. And they don't have the ability to change it. And frankly, Allura doesn't either. They gave that up, regardless of the pain that would cause people. And they knew, they did. But it's the way it is. And these people, the people in it, whether they know it or not, they are dealing with that. They are dealing with the speed of light being what it is. They are dealing with geometry designed how it is. They are dealing with the periodic table that has been handed to them. They are dealing with magic. They are dealing with the facts that, for example, nuclear weapons, if you have enough technology, aren't that hard to make. That's horrifying, and it was a choice. This wasn't... There are so few unintended consequences. The tragedy is part of its beauty, and Allura knew that, and in their excitement, they made the world the way it is. And the one beautiful thing that this universe kind of gets to litigate over hundreds of stories. Not all of them. Some of them are just about, a king that is trying to regain his birthright, or a hero who pulls a mighty sword, or a boy who befriends a phoenix. There's plenty of that. There's all kinds of, there are starships fighting intergalactic wars over, asteroid mining rights because they've fully plumbed the resources of their planet. Fantasy, sci-fi, it's all in there, whatever. Like, this setting has no one genre. There are too many stories for that to happen, but so much of it is worth remembering, and I don't remember the person I was when I started this. He's out there. He's, I don't know, but this is the story the way it is, and there are stories that have been written, and it's, I don't always remember to write things the right way, and I don't have everything in mind. One of the worst parts of doing this is that I have to go back and fix a lot of the continuity errors and all of that, but it is wild reading a story about, reading a story I wrote forever ago about a machine that, a machine that is just doing its best to try and save a world it is only trying to keep the peace, but its existence necessitates a bloody war. And to read that and then immediately go back and read this other story about just a woman who lost everything and didn't even know that she could blame it all on someone over there. And it matters, and it's in there, and it's worth thinking about. And I don't know. I don't always do the best job. I do the best job I can, but some days are better than others. This story, in its own lore, my faults as an author aside, the ability for the characters in this world to question their creation matters to so many of these stories, and sometimes it is the focal points, and even when it isn't, that understanding leads to the way things are. So I ask that you keep it in mind. If you find something that I wrote without keeping this in the back of my head, without intentionally focusing on this, it's worth remembering that to those people, this was something of a choice. That the responsibility Allura has in this world is not lost on them, and they deal with that choice all of the time. You know what? I'll find it. There's a section of story that I'm simply going to read to you. Space is just an invention of mine, a clever thing to skirt the rules of perfection and reason. I think you will learn, if you look at it hard enough, that the laws that shape the world, the parts of it you can touch, those are made to seem reasonable at first glance, but in truth are something of a mess when closely inspected. This is for a reason, you know. It may have been that I was excited, low on patience, and cut corners when I wove this world from the cloth of my dreams. It could easily have been that I was careless and a little eccentric. Perhaps I wanted a mystery, something for you all to unravel. I could tell you, but these are not the questions that matter. What's important is that the things that are endlessly more crucial are well crafted. Love, freedom, thought, reason, curiosity, philosophy, these are all delicate, ethereal, and while woven into every fiber of your existence, they are subtle, unobtrusive, and do not stand in the way of happiness. Not unless you let it. So yes, I am overjoyed at the passion with which you all seek understanding of the universe, but I would be that much happier if you took more time to merely enjoy it. Allura the Morning Star. See you next time.